3 spine-chilling true first day on the job horrors, unexplained sinister events revealed. Jenny's heart raced as she clasped the crumpled job offer letter in her trembling hands. It was a lifeline, a night shift at the local convenience store. What was once a safe, bustling neighborhood now lay shrouded in shadows, the fluorescent lights flickering like the dying remnants of hope. As she squeezed into the store's parking lot, an unsettling chill whisked through her, whispering warnings she couldn't quite grasp. Inside, Ted stood behind the counter, a friendly face with piercing blue eyes that seemed to look straight through her. When he leaned in closer, asking invasive questions about her life, a cold sweat formed along her spine. There was something about his smile that felt predatory, like he could sense the vulnerability she had grown accustomed to. She chuckled nervously, convincing herself that small-town charm just came with quirky characters. But as the night deepened, a pit of dread welled in her stomach. A sudden buzz interrupted her thoughts, an unknown number flashing on her phone screen. Curiosity got the best of her, and she hesitantly answered, but rather than a voice, static filled the air like a faint and ominous warning. It sent shivers down her spine. What she should have found mundane was pulsing with an unseen danger. Items on the shelves began shifting overnight, soda cans tumbling off the racks like they had minds of their own. She glanced at her coworker, an emotionless man who thrived on sharing tales of local legends, his stories weaving a tapestry of eerie disappearances. She laughed it off, but laughter turned brittle as each tale sank deeper into her mind. As midnight approached, the atmosphere thickened with tension. Ted's expression transformed, the warmth replaced by something darker, a shift suggesting he knew more than he let on. Suddenly, her breath hitched in her throat. A masked figure loomed outside the entrance, its gaze as black as the night itself. Panic gripped her, heart pounding like a drum in her ears. She scrambled for help, but the spooky silence outside swallowed her cries. The police? Dismissing her fears as paranoia was all too common, just as the darkness seemed to close in, the store lights flickered violently, plunging everything into a suffocating blackness before sputtering back. The masked figure was gone, but her sense of horror magnified. The air felt electric, like the moment before a storm. What if it wasn't he, just a stranger lurking? What if something far more insidious rested in the shadows, waiting for her? Ted's smile sharpened, and she wondered, with rising fear, whether she was the target of something monstrous. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The fluorescent lights buzzed ominously, flaring bright on Ted's face as he leaned closer, sizing her up with an unsettling intensity. Jenny's gut twisted as she wrestled with her next move. Every exit felt tenuous, every shadow pulsating with danger. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had stumbled into something way worse than an innocent job, something that fed on fear and secrets hidden behind bright smiles. As Ted's eyes gleamed, revealing the truth behind his deceptively friendly facade, she realized she was not just fighting for her safety, but for something she had yet to comprehend. The weight of impending horror tightened like a noose. Could she trust the strange man behind the counter? Or was she already ensnared in a nightmare that had only just begun? Light flickered again, sputtering against the relentless darkness that loomed beyond the glass doors. Jenny stood frozen, her breath shallow, heart thumping loudly in her ears. The store felt smaller now, almost suffocating, as though the walls were closing in with every anxious second. Ted's grin deepened, and she couldn't help but wonder how long it would take for his facade to crack under the pressure of her growing fear. "Are you okay, Jenny?" he asked, feigning concern. But his eyes sparkled with a strange, gleeful intensity, as if he relished her discomfort. "Yeah, just a little tired," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. The pit in her stomach churning with unease as she thought of the masked figure. She wanted to ask him if he had seen it too, but the words died in her throat. No way would she admit to being scared, not in front of him. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the store. Jenny jumped, instinctively grabbing the counter for support. What was that? She exclaimed, heart racing as panic clawed at her throat. Ted's expression didn't change, he merely shrugged, that eerie smile still plastered on his face. Probably just the stockroom, he said with a dismissive wave. But his voice lacked conviction, teasing uncertainty at the edges. Why don't you check it out? No, I think she stammered, but he was already moving, rounding the corner with a nonchalance that felt wrong in the thickening air. Alone now, she fought the urge to follow him, fear anchoring her feet to the floor. She could hear the sound of crumpling packaging from the back, followed by a low, guttural growl that sent chills cascading down her spine. Ted. She called, voice shaking. There was no answer. The store felt even emptier now, her isolation amplified by the shadows. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, an ominous echo in the silence. It wasn't an unknown number this time, it was a message from a friend, simply reading, "Hey, are you okay? You're not at home yet?" Jenny's heart raced as she typed back furiously, her fingers trembling. "I'm fine, just busy. Talk later." She pushed her phone away, but it buzzed yet again. The tension was unbearable. Looking toward the aisle where Ted had disappeared, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow darting past the liquor shelves. She strained to see as her blood ran cold. It wasn't Ted, not even close. The figure was too short, shrouded in a dark hoodie with a hood pulled tightly over its head. Jenny's pulse quickened, she blinked, hoping it was her imagination. She searched her surroundings for something to defend herself with. The thought struck her, what if Ted was in on whatever was happening? Jenny. Ted's voice pierced the quiet, suddenly much too close. She turned, heart pounding, to see him reappear with a box of snacks. "You gotta see this." "See what?" Her instinct bleated, her voice rising in panic as she took a step back. "I think I found something interesting in the stockroom," he said, eyes dancing with a maniacal glint. As he moved closer, Jenny caught a glimpse behind him, the shadow. It was back. Just at the edge of the aisle, it hovered, a floating specter. Something primal screamed within her, "Run!" But where? "Don't you want to know what I found?" Ted pressed, leaning in too close, smile stretching unnaturally wide. She didn't know how to answer. All she knew was that it felt like a trap, suffocating in dark. Time ticked torturously slow, the ominous presence lingering at the fringes. "What are you hiding, Ted?" she breathed, her voice trembling with realization. The figure lurking in the aisle shifted, stepping into the light, and everything froze, their eyes locked until a blood-curdling scream erupted from behind the shelf. What was it? Who was it? And what did that sound mean for Jenny's fight to survive this horrific night? Jenny's heart felt like it was in her throat, pounding erratically as she tried to comprehend what was happening. The scream echoed through the store, sharp and electrifying, slicing through the tension like a knife. Ted pivoted, his once calm demeanor fracturing as genuine confusion crossed his face. He glanced behind him, but that fleeting look of concern faded quickly, replaced again by that unsettling grin. "Did you hear that?" She croaked, her voice barely audible, each word trembling with fear. "Probably just some prank," he said, though he seemed less convinced than before. The flickering lights dimmed just as the scream re-emerged, this time, dragged out, almost like a desperate plea from someone trapped. "No, Ted. We need to go check it out." Her instincts screamed at her to flee, but she knew they were locked in this false reality, a game of survival distorted by shadows and lies. "Come on, Jenny. It's just a store. Don't tell me you're scared." His laugh tinkled nervously as he nudged her forward, something dark twisted in her stomach, urging her to flee. She took a hesitant step backward, eyes darting toward the display that held the masked figure's last known position. But the shape was gone, vanished into the oppressive blackness of the aisle. "I'm not scared," she whispered, though the quiver in her tone said otherwise. I just think we should leave now. Before Ted could reply, a crash echoed from the back, 1,000 soda cans tumbling like metallic raindrops. She instinctively stepped closer to Ted, the false confidence he projected no longer comforting but suffocating. The shadow re-emerged, slipping through the darkness, closer now, closer than she had ever seen before. You really want to stay? Just to prove a point? Ted asked, his tone sarcastic, but his eyes widened as he peered into the gloom. I panicked, clawed at Jenny. She was trapped in a place where the familiar was grotesquely distorted. She felt it in the air, a presence lurking beyond the shelves, observing. She could almost taste the fear, thick and metallic, suffocating her. Somewhere, the hiss of the store's soda fountain crackled, but it felt like a distant memory. The shadows twisted, and she could hear soft whispers, like a chant weaving through the darkness. It was chilling, the sound mixing with the distant echoes of the tragic scream, creating a discord that made her head spin. Suddenly, Ted snatched her arm, pulling her toward the stockroom door. Let us go see. What if it's just a mouse or something? This is boring. Don't you get it? She hissed, pulling away harshly. We shouldn't be here. We should get out. But he was already pushing through the door, oblivious to her terror. The chilling draft seeped through the stockroom threshold, whipping around them like a specter of danger. The moment he stepped inside, the lights flickered violently, plunging them back into darkness, leaving only the dim glow of the exit signs in the distance. She felt a surge of instinct that told her to run, to get away. The air buzzed with something electric, something alive. Shadows morphed, flanking her. Jenny! Get in here! Ted called, voice echoing hollowly. It felt different now, like he was no longer in control. An instinct told her this was wrong. What if he led her into a trap? A surge of adrenaline surged through her, and with one last look toward the shadows gathering at the aisle's edge, she rushed into the stockroom. In the dark, an immense weight rolled over her, pressing down. Plunged into an abyss of shadows, she gasped as the lights flickered back to life, briefly illuminating the room. And there, in the corner, lay a figure, shrouded and crumpled like discarded paper. Ted! She whispered. But no response came. Then, glimmering above the figure, she saw it, a mask, grotesquely grinning, the eyes empty and hollow. The sound of scuffling erupted again as a raspy breath broke the silence, followed by a guttural chuckle that resonated deeply in her bones. Was it too late? And with that thought, the lights went out once more. What lay waiting in the dark? Who would leave unscathed from this terrifying encounter? The silence was suffocating after the lights blinked out, plunging Jenny into an enveloping void. Her breath quickened, almost echoing back to her in the all-consuming darkness. Panic spiraled within her chest like a tightening coil, each heartbeat louder than the last. Ted, she shouted, but her voice sputtered into the choking void, swallowed by what felt like a thick fog of dread. Desperation clawed at her throat, and she fumbled in her pocket for her phone. The screen lit up, casting a faint, flickering light, revealing the contours of the stockroom. The figure lay motionless, an unearthly stillness clinging to it like a dark shroud. She stepped closer, heart pounding, a frantic tattoo. Shadows danced on the walls as she crept toward the body, desperation clawing at her insides. If it was Ted just a few steps away, she noticed the lifeless form was not wearing his uniform. Dark hair spilled out around it like strands of night. This wasn't Ted. Panic surged anew, pushing her backward, but her foot caught on something cold and metallic, sending her crashing to the floor. A sharp breath hissed from the corners of the room, chilling her to the core. Who's there? Her voice cracked, barely a whisper now. She could hear movement, unseen forces sweeping through the aisles around her, brushing against shelves with an unsettling rustle. Each sound felt wrong, alive, predatory. In that moment, a spotlight flickered back to life, illuminating a small section of the room and revealing a grotesque mask just inches from her face. Its hollow eyes glimmered unnaturally, reflecting her terror like a mirror. She scrambled backward, hands clawing against the floor, breath hitching in her throat as another rasping laugh echoed from the shadows. Suddenly, the overhead lights buzzed to life, flashing sporadically, illuminating what lay beyond the shelves, an entire row of figures dressed in tattered clothing, faces hidden behind sinister masks, their forms shifting slightly like puppets waiting for strings to be pulled. Jenny's insides twisted painfully. "What do you want from me?" she cried, voice tremoring as she backed into the corner, bracing herself against the wall. A chuckle, low and sinister, slithered through the air. "You shouldn't have come here," a voice murmured, layered with an unspeakable malice that seeped into her bones. It felt like darkness personified, hungry for fear. They stepped closer, hovering at the edge of the flickering light, their laughter reverberating in a chilling harmony. They moved as if drawn by an unseen force, an unnatural rhythm fueling their advance. The exit sign flickered above, taunting her with hope just out of reach. She had to get out. As the menacing figures approached, she lunged toward the door, heart racing. But the light above full-on exploded, plunging her back into nothingness, and laughter surrounded her. Murmurs distorted into a haunting melody. Frozen, she felt hands tugging at her from behind, grasping like nightmares made real. She twisted to break free, but it was no use. They were everywhere, a suffocating presence pressing in, drowning out her thoughts, leaving nothing but primal fear. "Let me go!" she screamed, fighting against the invisible grip tightening around her throat, pulling her deeper into their world. But then the pressure vanished, and she staggered, collapsing to the floor with a muffled thud. Silence returned, thick and oppressive, leaving an unsettling void ringing in her ears. Was this the end? Just when she thought the worst was over, a whisper curled around her. "We're not finished yet." What horror awaited her next? Would she manage to escape the malevolent grip that ensnared the stockroom? The weight of the silence pressed down on Jenny, an unbearable weight that clung to her as she lay sprawled on the cold floor. She breathed rapidly, the air feeling almost thick and stale, tainted with an unseen malevolence. A faint whimper escaped her lips. Was she truly alone? Then she heard it again, an unmistakable whisper, as if someone was circling her in the dark. "We're watching." The voice danced around her, flickering like the barely glowing embers of a dying fire. A shudder coursed through her body. Panic shot up her spine, urging her to get up and move. She pushed herself off the ground, her hands shaking, brushing against cold metal shelves filled with various items. Everything felt sharp, odd, as if the inanimate objects themselves held secrets that wanted to spill forth in dreadful cacophony. She took a deep breath and steadied herself, fighting against the overwhelming urge to scream. One shaky step forward, then another. She could feel the prickling of eyes on her, the figures lurking just within the bounds of darkness. Each breath echoed back at her, a mocking reminder of her isolation. "Why won't you show yourselves?" she called out, her voice steady despite the rising tide of dread. It felt like a desperate challenge to the void. And for a moment, there was nothing, only stillness. Then, an unsettling rush of wind brushed by, and the figures started to emerge, one by one, peeling away from darkness like a flower unfurling to reveal its sinister petals. The flickering overhead lights began to catch glimmers of them, their tattered clothes clinging to warped bodies. Each mask was grotesque, contorted with expressions of hunger, anger, and something far more unsettling, joy. They moved closer, the rhythm of their collective footsteps intertwining in a menacing symphony. "Why are you here?" she managed to ask, heart lurching within her chest as she backed against the cool metal shelving. "Because you want to be," the voice from before responded, now clearer, dripping with malice as it slithered from the faceless figures. "You stepped into our realm." Jenny shook her head vigorously, denial clawing at her. "No. I didn't step into anything. I just wanted to stock shelves." It was a pitiful attempt at defiance. Their laughter erupted in twisted harmonies, echoing around her in a spiraling cacophony that threatened to swallow her whole. With a sudden, frenzied burst, she bolted toward the exit. The air thickened around her, suffocating as she lunged for the door. But it wasn't opening. It stood firm, mockingly so, as if it had never been meant to yield. "Leave, while you can." A voice gurgled from the shadows, the growl sending shivers down her spine. "Let me out!" she screamed, banging her fists against the barricaded doors. That urge to flee surged back, roaring in her chest. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and she felt something cold wrap around her leg, pulling her down. Her other foot slipped as she twisted to break loose, but she was falling, the floor rushing up to meet her in a violent embrace. Then darkness engulfed her once more. When she opened her eyes again, she was in a dimly lit room, filled with the scent of decay, the air heavy and stagnant. The laughter faded into the walls, but the whispers remained, echoing in her mind. "You'll never escape." She got to her feet slowly, disoriented. Was this a new prison, deeper in their lair? Just then, she heard another voice from behind her, softer but distinctly sinister. "They've all come back. What about you?" Jenny's heart hammered in her chest as she turned around slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. Who else had been claimed by this malevolence? Was she destined to join their ranks, or could she find a way out of this nightmare? An eerie flicker of light caught her eye, leading deeper into the shadows. The flickering light drew Jenny deeper into a choking haze of whispers. It danced like a will-o'-the-wisp, tempting her forward. Every step felt like a breach of some ancient rule, her heart hammering in protest. But the suffocating weight of dread summoned her, a cruel siren call urging her to approach. The air crackled with tension, shadows shifting in her peripheral vision, just beyond the flicker of light. Each breath felt like knives against her lungs, fighting the urge to run away. Why had she let herself be pulled into this? The thought of simply running clashed against the gnawing curiosity gnashing at her insides. As she moved ahead, the faint flicker revealed twisted portraits scrawled on the walls, each face contorted in anguish, terror forever immortalized in brush strokes of darkness. A shudder traveled down her spine. Were these the lost souls, caught in the labyrinth of despair? "Look closer," a voice hissed, echoing eerily as if it resonated from the very walls themselves. Jenny's eyes widened, darting around her. "What do you mean, look closer?" she breathed, the words slipping out as a tremor. "Don't you see their pain?" The voice drew nearer, sending chills cascading down her back. It was followed by a low hiss, a pulse of energy radiating through the air. When she hesitated, tremors of panic etched on her face, the light flickered again then dimmed, leaving her engulfed in another layer of darkness. She searched frantically, her heart pounding. The sensation of being watched crept upon her, a horde of unseen eyes traipsing across her skin. Then, images flooded her mind, a flash of memories that weren't hers. Faces some she recognized, others blurred and indistinct crowded her thoughts. She gasped, stumbling back as she pressed her hands to her temples, feeling pulsing pressure. "Join us," the cold whispers weaved their way into her mind, slithering like icy tendrils curving around her consciousness, tugging at her sanity. "You can be free." In her mind's eye, the figures from before appeared, their expressions shifting into horrific grins. They danced around her memory like vultures sniffing carrion. "No. I want to join you," Jenny shouted, her voice cracking. "Why resist?" Another voice cooed, now floating in from the darkness. "We can keep you safe. Even here." Unsafe, she felt it in her veins. Surely, they meant to trap her. But how? Beneath her feet, the ground rumbled slightly, and a foul odor invaded her senses, something putrid, rotting real. Looking down, she gasped again, seeing the rise and fall of a shadow-filled lump writhing just beneath the surface, like the confines of a nightmare pressing against the world above. "Help us," the voices crooned sweetly, departing on a faint ripple of laughter. "No." Still shouting, Jenny took a step back, her heart thundered wildly. She turned from the glowing allure, the grotesque warmth beckoning her to surrender. Then she heard it, a low, growling sound, a thick presence stirring just beyond the wavering light. "Turn back," the shadowy collective urged. Could she trust the darkness? She weighed the shifting whispers against the throaty rumble inching closer. Desperate, she chose to flee. Jenny darted for the nearest shadow, but as she skidded, the lights flickered madly again. Stay! The chilling command filled her ears, reverberating in her bones. The ground roared beneath her as hands clawed upward from the depths, reaching for her. Panic flooded her veins as she sprinted forward again, adrenaline surging. Just then, she caught a glimpse of something familiar, something she thought she'd buried long ago. Was it a memory? Or was it a ruse? Run! The whispers screamed as she raced toward an exit beckoning dimly in the shadows. But something shifted in front of her, a hulking figure blocking her path, eyes burning with an insatiable hunger, hungrier than anything she'd faced yet. Would this be the end, or just another beginning? Fate was waiting, and Jenny had no choice but to confront what had been lurking all along. Jenny stumbled, her breath coming in ragged gasps as the hulking figure loomed larger in the dim light. It was a grotesque blend of shadow and substance, its form shifting and curling like smoke. She could scarcely make out its features, but the hunger in its eyes glowed with a dreadful intensity. Let go! A whisper trailed through the air, soft but suffocating. The ground shuddered again, the walls seemed to close in, twisting and contorting around her. Everything inside her screamed to flee, but the figure stood resolute, a cruel sentinel at the threshold of her escape. Her instincts quaked in uncertainty. Could she vault past it? Would it let her go, or would it pull her into the darkness forever? She could hear the breaths of the figures behind her. A chorus of shared despair encapsulated within their mournful sighs, coaxing her to return. You have nowhere to go, the darkness whispered. Only we can offer you peace. But peace felt like a lie. Every instinct told her to fight against the lie. She forced herself to focus, drawing the memory of her family into her thoughts, their faces bright and real amidst this nightmare. I want to be yours. She shouted, but her voice quivered, wavering under the weight of her fear. The hulking shadow shifted, a crackle of energy in the air. Join us, it rasped, and in veins of ice, she felt the call. Eyes narrowing, she tightrope walked the line of terror and determination. She couldn't succumb. In that critical moment, adrenaline surged through her bloodstream. Jenny lunged left, dodging the phantom figure. She barreled forward now, her chest tightening with desperation. With each step she took, the whispers became shrill, clawing at her consciousness. Don't leave us! The bitter sentiment echoed frantically, reverberating through her mind. We are tied together, join us. She fought against it, willing herself to ignore the dark truth they spoke. Broken memories threatened to overwhelm her, gnashing like 10,000 teeth, faces of those she knew, shadows of what could have been spinning in her head. Then something clicked in her mind. The light, if she could reach it, perhaps it could guide her, protect her. She whipped her head toward the dim glow, her heart pounding like a war drum. Just ahead, it pulsed, alive with hope and warmth. But the hulking figure surged, lunging after her with impossible speed. Jenny felt the brush of icy breath snake around her neck, a promise of capture. She forced her legs to move faster, her feet pounding against the uneven ground. She reached the flickering light, stretching out her hands as if to touch it, to submerge in its safety. The walls around her trembled, cracking. A deafening roar erupted behind her, sounding like 1,000 whales frozen in time. You want to escape. In that instant, she grasped onto the dawn of light tightly, half expecting to be pulled into an abyss, but instead, she felt a surge, then a rippling wave that surged through her, overpowering the ghastly sound surrounding her. But just as quickly, the light dimmed. Fear gripped her throat. What is happening? She gasped, staring at the light now flickering as it faded like a candle in the wind. 1,000 eyes glared back from the shadows, a relentless army of despair waiting for their answer. The light sputtered one last time, a gasp of life, and then darkness. In the choking silence, visions twisted once more, faces of strangers corrupted and longing surrounded her. Choose, they whispered, their voices swirling like a tempest in her mind, and there it was, echoing against her sanity, a heartbeat pulsing, too fast, too familiar. What if it wasn't just her own heartbeat? Jenny, it whispered, clawing at her soul with every letter. Could she betray herself? Or did she risk it all to confront the shadows? The shadows hungered, and so did she for the truth. A truth she was inches from discovering, or was she walking closer to her doom? She had to find out. Would resurrected memories save her or destroy her? Jenny's heart thudded violently, echoing in the oppressive dark. Shadows danced around her, swirling in a cacophony of whispers that clawed at her mind. "What do you want from me?" She screamed into the void, voice trembling as she staggered backward. The pulse of that unsettling heartbeat quickened, thrumming in sync with her rising panic. Suddenly, a flicker of light emerged from within the depths of the blackness, a ghostly, shimmering orb that pulsed like a distant star. It calmed her momentarily, beckoning her closer. Her instincts fought against the tide of despair that warned her to flee. "Come," Jenny's voice, silky and sweet yet laced with malice, curled around her like a serpent. "We're waiting for you." Join us. Gathering every ounce of courage, she took hesitant steps toward the light. Each movement felt like wading through thick fog, heavy, suffocating. The whispers chanted her name now, a sea of voices calling out, layering her thoughts with doubt. The light enveloped her, wrapping her in an embrace that felt warm yet electric. Memories flared to life, rushing back in a chaotic flood, unraveling the fabric of her reality. She saw her family laughing, smiling friends bright with life. But then, the visions twisted, shadows creeping in, warping their faces into grotesque parodies of joy. "Mom." Jenny trembled, tears pooling in her eyes. "Dad?" "Lost," they echoed back to her, their forms dissolving into smoke. "Lost in the dark like you." The heartbeat pulsed louder. A soft, cold laugh seeped through the walls, a cruel mockery of comfort. "You can't hold on to them. Let them go, and you'll find your true self." What was this place? A prison? A sanctuary? She turned, searching for a way out, but the shadows closed in. More figures emerged from the dark, their faces blurring together, once individuals, now a single mass of hauntings. They reached for her, fingertips stretching, desperate to snatch her back into their welcoming void. Jenny's instinct screamed, fighting against the tide. She could feel the walls constricting around her, feel the temperature dropping as a bone-chilling dread coursed through her veins. She couldn't let them take her. Not now, not after all she had endured. Suddenly, the orb of light shrieked, its brightness threatening to extinguish entirely. "Join us, forever." Immortal among the shadows, the voices crescendoed, the air thickening with temptation and despair. It engulfed her, wrapping tightly like a noose, summoning her will. Jenny turned her back to the engulfing darkness, anchoring her gaze on the last flicker of light. It pulsed defiantly, whispering promises of safety. "You can find a way." In a moment of reckless courage, she lunged toward it again, pushing through the haze of despair. The light responded, shimmering more brightly, igniting a fierce hope within her heart. But the shadows roared in fury, thrashing against her resolve. "No. You belong with us." They howled, the ground beneath her feet trembled violently. She struck the golden glow, fingertips grazing its surface, pulling her in. In that blinding moment, she felt warmth envelop her, as if embracing life itself, conflicting crumbles of shadows gnawing at the fringes of her mind, but suddenly, her breath caught. What had she chosen? A misstep could plunge her into oblivion. Just as she thought she had reached safety, that heartbeat pulsed viciously in her ears, sharply reminding her of its presence. "Jenny, the truth will haunt you," it whispered. "Are you ready to see?" Panic surged anew. Had she unleashed something she couldn't control? The familiar dread washed over her, and with it came the realization that what lay ahead was only the beginning. What truths awaited her beyond the light? Would she emerge stronger or be consumed once and for all? The light swallowed her whole, creating a cocoon of shimmering warmth as she felt herself being pulled into the unknown. It was intoxicating, almost like the light wanted to erase her fears. But Jenny knew better. It was a trap wrapped in a fantasy, seeking to ensnare her soul. Like so many before her, her surroundings shifted. One moment she was suspended in a radiance that felt almost divine, and the next she found herself standing in a dimly lit hallway. The air was thick with dust and an unsettling stillness. Worn portraits lined the walls, their faces staring down at her with empty, haunting eyes. It was an old building, she could feel it in her bones, full of memories and secrets, many of which were best left undisturbed. "Hello." Her voice echoed, but there was no response. Just a creeping dread curling tighter around her heart. Each step she took felt heavy, as if the very ground was protesting her presence. She reached a doorway at the end of the hall, splintered and slightly ajar. Curiosity pushed her forward. Inside, shadows swirled, coiling like living things, twisting in a slow dance over furniture draped in sheets like mourners cloaked in despair. A large mirror dominated one wall, its surface cracked and beleaguered, a reflection of something far more sinister than mere glass. As she approached, a shiver coursed through her, each breath tinged with the sweet scent of decay. "Look closely," the whispers beckoned once more, now infused with a familiar tone, one that made her stomach churn. It was just short of a growl, buried beneath layers of fondness. "You have to face it, it couldn't be." She leaned closer, heart pounding in her chest. The reflections warped. Faces flickered like old film, moments of joy collapsing into turmoil. In that mirror, she saw herself, an insatiable darkness behind her eyes, flickering like a candle on the verge of going out. The shadows around her thickened, coiling and swallowing everything in their path. "Why are you doing this?" she cried out, voice cracking. But the only reply was the horrid laughter that rolled around the room, low and menacing. "Your truth will devour you, Jenny," it taunted, each word dripping with disdain. With trembling hands, Jenny pressed her palms against the cold surface of the mirror. The sensation sent electric jolts up her arms, igniting something buried deep within. Suddenly, she was thrust into a whirlpool of visions, each one more horrific than the last. Lives lost, events twisted by malevolence, her loved ones engulfed by the very darkness that sought her. Gripping the sides of the mirror, panic erupted in her chest. She needed to wake up, to escape this madness. Yet, regardless of her efforts, she felt herself slipping, a slow descent into shadows that beckoned her with seductive familiarity. "Stay," they hissed, a chorus of syllables merging into one. "With us forever." Was she destined to become another lost soul among the countless specters? A pawn in this mind-bending ballet of anguish, but then, a flicker of defiance ignited within her, breaking through the storm of despair. She couldn't let them win. Summoning every ounce of her strength, she tore her gaze from the cursed mirror. As if realizing their grip was loosening, the shadows lunged toward her. "No!" she screamed. In that moment, a surge of adrenaline coursed through her, igniting her senses. She whipped around, heading for the door, knowing it was her only chance. As she stumbled back into the corridor, the whispers surged with fury behind her, a thunderous roar that echoed off the walls. "You can run!" they bellowed. A cold sweat clung to her as she dashed forward, heart racing. The building felt alive, shifting and closing in on itself, and with every frantic step, it felt as though the walls were conspiring against her. Each shadow reached out, a tangible force, grasping desperately at the edges of her sanity, and just as she reached the front entrance, the ground beneath her trembled. Dark hands lashed out, claws of shadow grazing her ankle, sending her spiraling forward. As she fell, thoughts raced through her mind. Did she have the strength to escape? What awaited her outside the threshold? The door flung open with a deafening creak, revealing a scene so familiar yet profoundly twisted. It was her childhood home, eerily transformed, each detail exaggerated into something grotesque. "Mom! Dad!" she shouted, but the silence in the air was pregnant with malice. They were there, waiting, but were they truly themselves? Jenny's heart stopped cold. What had she awakened? In a world twisted by shadows, was there truly a way out? The uncertainty loomed over her like a dark cloud, smothering the last glimmers of hope. What awaited her in this warped domestic hell? Would she find salvation, or was she too late to turn back? Jenny stood at the entrance of her childhood home, the door wide open, like a gaping maw ready to swallow her whole. The once vibrant paint was peeling off, memories whispering from the cracked walls, but they felt tainted now, infected by something dark and ominous. The air clung to her like a smothering blanket, filled with an unspeakable tension that made her want to flee. But where? Her heart raced, shattering silence with desperate beats. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The familiar faces appeared in the shadowy living room, their smiles twisted, stretching too wide, revealing too many teeth. "Come in, Jenny," her mother's voice crooned, a melody turned sinister. "We've been waiting for you." She felt a pull, unearthing memories of love, warmth, laughter, a lifetime wrapped in the softness of familiarity. But all of it felt layered like a thick fog, hiding a malignant presence just beneath the surface. "No!" she shouted, shaking her head violently. "You're not them. You're not my family." The figures froze, the warmth evaporating in an instant. "You dare disrespect us?" Her father's voice thundered, the magic of nostalgia turning sour. "We sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay us." The shadows around him grew darker, pulsating like threats coiling around her. She had to make a choice to stand her ground or be consumed. But how could she truly know? Closure hung like a pendulum over her mind. Jenny took a step back, unsteady but resolute. "I want to be another lost soul among you. I came to break free." Then she saw it again, the flickering light that had led her so many times before, shining through the distortion of her childhood home, illuminating the dark with a promise of hope. "I choose to live," she cried, turning her back on the horror before her. The shadows roared in collective fury, and she sprinted toward the light. The house trembled as if it were alive, the floorboards creaking in protest. Each step felt like she was wading through thick mud, but she fought against the gravitational pull, her will igniting like a fire. The walls morphed, crumpling and shifting as if they sensed her defiance. "You can't escape," they screeched, voices rising into a cacophony, each word laced with venom. But Jenny could feel something stirring inside, a primal scream echoing through her veins. As she lunged into the glowing passage, everything dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds, a whirlwind of emotion striking her like lightning. And just that quickly, the air shifted. She emerged into the chill of the night outside, gasping for breaths of crisp freedom, the shadows thrumming with rage behind her. She turned back, the house now nothing more than a looming silhouette against the moonlit horizon. A weight lifted from her chest, making space for the warmth of belonging she had long thought lost. Jenny took a deep breath, feeling fresh hope course through her, igniting her spirit anew. "Never again," she whispered, determination fueling her steps. She wouldn't be a puppet to fear and darkness. She would build her life from the light, embracing every moment like a lifeline. It was time for closure, for solace and healing. She would carry the truth of her past, but it wouldn't rule her. The shadows behind her could have their nightmare. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, she trudged forward, ready for whatever would come next, light pouring into her very soul like a scarlet sunrise after raging storms. But before she stepped into her new dawn, she paused, looking out into the universe. "You're watching, I know," she murmured, "but I want to let you take me again." The journey was not just about survival, it was about embracing the gift of choice. Real freedom awaited, if she only had the courage to reach for it. And with every step, she did. Don't leave just yet. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you don't miss our next exclusive story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us keep the good vibes rolling. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Let us hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the love and light together.